it's Kisha here with Defending the Early Years podcast. We'll be focusing on amplifying the voices of early childhood educators, advocates, and all of those who love children. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. Today, we're going to be talking to Becky Gamache. Hey, Becky.
Hi.
Hi, I am so excited to talk to you about this project or initiative that you're working with regarding play equity. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're working, your school, and the project that you have going on?
Sure. So I'm located up in Duluth, Minnesota, and I've been working in early childhood for about 25 years, a little bit more than that. And most of them have been in public school and public school preschool. And early on, when I started I was in Superior, Wisconsin in the public school. Our preschool program was done through the community ed program. So it was very play-based. We did lots of activities with families. And then as monies were put forward by the state for universal pre-K, that was added to the district, and our community program went away. And so that was kind of my first foray into actual public school preschool, and it was great. We really kind of created it and got to do very play-based, developmentally appropriate activities with kids, and then that kept getting chipped away bit by bit. And pretty soon it was a place that I didn't recognize anymore. So I went across the bridge of Lake Superior over to Duluth, and I've been here for, I think this is my 6th or 7th year. And I started doing home base Head Start, and a classroom opened up, and I said to my director, I said, I want to go back to the classroom, but if I do, I want to be outside a lot. I want to be able to be play-based. I think all kids deserve a play-based program, and just because a child is in a public school, publicly funded program, federally funded program, shouldn't dictate what kind of programming they get. So she allowed me to kind of spread my wings and go back to being play-based, and that kind of steamrolled to where we're at now.
Oh, wow. So it was as simple as sharing your perspective, sharing your voice, going and asking for what you wanted for and what you knew what was right for kids. And that worked out for you. You got your classroom. And I know you were in the classroom for, was it 1 or 2 school years that you did that program when you were in the classroom with the play-based group?
So 3 school years. And then I took the position that I have now, which is education coordinator for our preschool program.
All right. And in that time when you were working in the classroom with this play-based model, did you feel that it was catching? Did other classrooms start to take on some of those play-based ideals? Were you able to spread the vision? Because I think a lot of times educators, I know I've been there. I've been the one person in my school or in my childcare center that really believed in play and like childhood and getting dirty and going outside and just doing, allowing a child to follow their own passions. So for me, that has been hard, and kind of getting other people to buy in to the awesomeness of it was a challenge that I took on and I enjoyed. And in some cases it was like wonderful, teachers saw what was happening in my classroom and they were all about it. And then in other cases, it was really hard, especially for veteran teachers. It was really hard. So did you find that you doing this work in the school started a web of change, or did you receive a lot of resistance?
I didn't receive a lot of resistance, which was great. And partially it was because I could show that, all of the documentation and assessments that we are required to do for a Head Start, I could show that my groups were making progress in this play-based environment. So I was able to collect the data that way. So that certainly helped. But yes, definitely it kind of started to snowball. My colleague across the hall, she would, start trying new things. And the director asked me to do a training for our full staff, which was our preschool teachers, our early childhood special ed teachers, and I think we had we have something called ECFE here in Minnesota, which is early childhood family education, and they do groups with parents or guardians and children together, so that staff too. And so we did a loose parts, a play-based training for the full staff, and yeah, it just kind of snowballed from there. And then when the fantastic director that we had retired, we got another fantastic director who shared a similar vision, and we wrote our grant, our new Head Start grant, to reflect some of the work that we wanted to do so that there was money behind it.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. And what I found so wonderful about that is when you mentioned the importance of documenting this, the importance of kind of putting the proof there, because it's undeniable. Can you share with us some of the ways that you did that? How did you document? How did you collect this data? How did you prove that this, in fact, is the best way for children to learn?
Well, I did a lot of just writing anecdotal records of what kids were doing and saying. Photographs, of course, are amazing. Videos, I started putting, I always just called them learning stories. I don't know if there's other terms that people use for those, like up in the hallway. So not only for our families to see, but other staff to see. One of the first ones was the kids had discovered out in the woods this big barrel they could fit in. And so it was this evolution of how they used the barrel, how they fought over the barrel in the beginning, how they were able to figure out how to take turns on their own in the barrel. That 2 kids could fit in the barrel, but not 3 very comfortably, that it could roll down the hill with someone in the barrel, and who enjoyed that and who didn't. So it was, it kind of started with that. And then just the feedback I got from the families that were there on a daily basis, and other staff seeing it in the hall, then I started to do more of those. So kind of that visual documentation.
Yeah,
and then
hallway documentation always brings a crowd.
Yes.
Good hallway documentation always brings a crowd.
And then just in conferencing with families, like I would just share all of those, either whether it was a work sample or the photographs, or sharing videos and saying, this is what your child was doing in September, and wow, look at what they can do now. So always that strength-based approach.
Awesome. So did you have any pushback from the district or from anyone above your immediate principal's office? Did you have any pushback there?
I was lucky that there wasn't pushback as far as shutting things down, but I did have, just different staff members who didn't quite agree. Like one time I came in and all of my tools were gone. And, I was like, oh, there's been a robbery. Someone stole the tools. And it took me a while to track down what it was. And it was one of our custodians wasn't comfortable that I was using tools and was worried that the kids were going to get hurt. So instead of having a conversation, they just removed them. And so then I went and had a conversation about, what we do with them and how we keep kids safe when they use them, and all of those pieces. And other things like when we play on the snow hills, there's just, I would say kind of, I don't want to call them outsiders, but people not in the early childhood realm who didn't quite understand why we would be doing those things. And luckily the director was very supportive, and so she would back me up. But in other places, and in other instances, not so much in my current job, like it'd be like, oh, well, they said no, so you can't do it.
Yeah. So I think the key is that you, 1, are confident, 2, what you're talking about, and you're not afraid to stand up and defend childhood. Having those facts, and I've seen it with licensing, having those clear
Mm-hmm.
facts, because it's undeniable, having those clear facts and being unafraid to have that conversation. Usually, in my experience, and it sounds like in a lot of your experiences, it gives you a lot of leeway. People kind of left me alone because they realized that I was being intentional. And it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like that's the same type of respect that you got for your work, because you put yourself forward as someone who had the intention behind what you were doing, the information behind what you were doing, and the language to communicate that. And that's something that I think we need to be sure that we come with that arsenal. If we're gonna do these things that are gonna make people question, we need to have answers for them. So I love that. Can you tell us a little bit about your school? I know you are in a public school facility, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that it's harder for you. I have a private preschool. I can get away with doing a lot of things that I want to do because I don't have a district or a principal or all those things. I know it's tougher for you to push the envelope. So tell us a little bit about the structure of the school, the type of school, the area that you're in, the communities that you serve.
So our program is in 7 different elementary schools, and we have 15 classrooms. And then we also do home-based programming for families who would prefer to have a teacher come in and work with them at home. And then we also serve families. We call them families in transition. So families that are experiencing homelessness, they're in the shelter or they're in transitional housing. So we have teachers that work with those families as well. So it is a little tricky, and all the schools are different. So the principals, it's not the same across the board. One school, they go out, some of you will cringe, but they go out until 18 below Fahrenheit, and other schools it's 0. So sometimes it's hard to navigate some of those pieces. We had kids go outside one time we've got the Okie rain suits, and it was raining. So recess was canceled for elementary kids, but our kids had the rain suits. So our teacher took them out, and the principal was wondering why, why they went out in the rain. And then the director explained, well, they have these rain suits. And then everybody was on the same page. But yeah, so just navigating those pieces has been tricky sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And how are you funding, like, for example, the rain suits? How are you because to me, having a lot of the hindrance with some of this stuff, or a lot of the things that I hear from teachers, is we can't possibly go on the mud because everybody doesn't come with the right clothes. Or we
Right.
can't possibly go in the mud because we're going to track mud inside the building. Like there's always reasons. And I'm most interested in what are ways around those reasons so that we can help other people be able to make this work in their environment. So what are you guys doing as far as funding? How did you get those suits?
So when I talked earlier about the grant, so our Head Start grant, we wrote it into the grant. So we wanted to provide gear for all of the kids to give access to all the kids, because not everybody would be able to afford rain boots and a rain suit and good cold weather gear and all of those things. So we wrote our grant to provide all of those things for all of the children. So that gear stays at school, and everybody has access to it. So I would say grants, even before I got this Head Start grant. That's how I got my first set of suits when I was in the classroom. Just finding a local foundation and writing a grant. And I know some people, maybe that's a barrier because sometimes it's a big process, and it's sometimes hard to do, but I would say put the effort out there. And once you do a couple grants, you get really good at it, and you kind of save your drafts. And, sometimes you can even recycle some of the words that you use. So then it's not so intimidating. But yeah, I would say go for it. Yeah, anybody who wants to contact me, I would help you write a grant. It's once you get in the process, it's good. So that's how we tackled it. Our 3 most urban schools, out of the 7, the other schools have lots of green space or woods. Our three most urban schools, we put in the grant to build them playscapes. We know elementary playgrounds aren't always built for our littlest ones, so we built these playscapes that are made just for 5 and under, and full of natural elements. And we also have to share with the elementary classes for the playground, so we don't have to be mindful of, oh, we can't go outside right now because the fifth graders are out there.
Mhm.
So
And so I saw some of your work with the playscapes and the outdoor programming. Does this change does this change the setup of the day? Does this change the way that school is run now that you have these wonderful outdoor classrooms? Are you guys outside more? How is that looking? How has
yeah,
that changed the program?
definitely outside more. Gear was such a big barrier because you just can't have kids soaking wet all day, or you don't have 16 different sets of clothes to change kids into, and all of that. And or just by the reality of our families, not all of them have ready laundry facilities, so it's also not okay to send kids home in completely muddy clothes. So having the gear brings them outside a lot more. And then also just the affordance of being able to think about their schedules more, and not so much teacher-led time, but this nice mix of indoor and outdoor playtime. So there's larger chunks. And with the playscapes and the schools that have more green space, they are able to schedule larger chunks outside because they don't have to be mindful of other groups sharing the same space.
What are you seeing in the children? What changes are you seeing?
Um, I always think when I'm out and about and observing kids, and then just my own anecdotal observations from my years in the classroom, is I think children are better regulated. I think being outside gives them a space where they can move how they want to move, and um, you know be loud and be fast and strong, and all of those things in a space where it's safe for everybody to be able to do that. So definitely regulation. I think, I don't know if hardiness is the word, but being outside isn't everybody's jam, especially in northern Minnesota. So just having a positive experience outside, they're not standing out with a family member waiting for a bus for half an hour. It's appropriate gear, so they're warm, and fun time. So it creates a positive connection to being outside too.
Wonderful. And I know that you mentioned that some of your programs have green space and have some forest, and then other programs are in a more urban environment. How were you able to get around that barrier, the environment itself?
So that's where the playscapes came into play. Current director thought of adding that into the grant, because it was a pretty big expense, and normally you wouldn't be able to do 3 in one hall. So just approaching the 3 elementary schools where we were looking at space, and working with the principal and our district buildings and grounds crew to say, is this possible? Where can we do it? Here's why we want to do it. And everybody was really supportive and understood and got the ball rolling. And they were a little bit delayed because of the pandemic and materials and things like that. So it was about 2 years longer than we thought it was going to be, but they finally opened up last month.
Oh my, that is so inspiring. Especially for those who are in urban environments and don't just have the space there already. Did you guys in your more urban schools, did you bring in soil? Did you create grassy areas, or did you already have something to work with?
At two of the schools, the something was just kind of a flat green lawn space that wasn't really used for much. And one school, it was more of a wilder place, and we worked with Three Owls Consulting, who designed playscapes, and so they used the natural features of what each school had. So one of the schools has a big long retaining wall, and so they put in those climbing wall steps there, so everyone had something different. And in the space that had more kind of a wild space, they left so many of the trees and built it onto a hill, so kids were already mudsliding last month. I'm sure snow sliding is continuing. Sand, brought in those things, because we had to follow Head Start regulations. So stumps had to be buried a certain depth. So big stumps buried in, so they're anchored in. And
but I love
yeah.
it. I
Yeah.
love that you made it work. Like, you had a speed bump, you made it work,
Right.
and to see that this can happen in a public school. And you mentioned Head Start. So it can be done, guys. It can be done, and it's hard work. And sometimes it takes 2 years. I wanted to touch base with you on, I have a question. So we have this Build Back Better and Preschool for All coming down the pipeline. What are your thoughts? What are your concerns? What are your excitements about that? How do you think that will affect this work in our public schools and in our, in the preschool portions of the public schools?
Well, of course, I think they should model it after what we're doing in the other public schools. There's not a huge army of us, but there's pockets of us. I think they should model it after us because we're doing it and it's working, and kids are making gains, and they're having the same experiences that their peers are getting in the other fabulous outdoor play-based programs that are tuition based. So of course that's what I think. And I have maybe a few times emailed the White House to say those things.
I was going to ask, who do we all send letters to? we need to show these examples. Can you give us we need to know where we can see wonderful photos, videos, whatever you have of this taking shape, website, Facebook page, and how we can contact you, because I think there are going to be some people that want to do this and they are going to want to pick your brain. So please give us that, your contact of the school, or information about the school, where we can see this in action, and your direct contact.
So I'm in Duluth Public Schools in Duluth, Minnesota, and our Facebook page it's kind of a long one because we've got 3 different funding streams. So under the umbrella, it's Duluth Preschool, and then Head Start School Readiness VPK, which stands for Voluntary Pre-K, which is the state universal program. So Duluth Preschool, Head Start, School Readiness, VPK. That's how you'll find us, but probably if you just did Duluth Preschool, it should pop up. And so do you want me to give out my email, or?
However you want people to contact you for speaking gigs. I know you do speaking gigs. You may do some consulting, any way that you would like people who are more interested and want to learn more from you to get, or hire you guys, hire her, to get in contact with you.
Well, I'll give you my district email. So it's my formal name, Rebecca, REBECCA .Gamache, GAMACHE at ISD 70. Dang it. Let me try that again. Rebecca.Gamache at ISD709.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much for talking to us today and inspiring me and the audience. Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was another episode of the Defending the Early Years podcast. Defending the Early Years works to support the rights and needs of young children nationally. Learn more at DEY.org. Pay us a visit, sign up for our newsletter, or connect with us on social media. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.